Welcome back to Metals, Money, and Markets for week ending October 6, 2017. For Mining Clips, I'm Rob Goodman, and with me as always, Mickey Fulp, the Mercenary Geologist, to make some sense out of the numbers. Well, Mickey, as we head into this week, I'd say the top economic stories here, a bad jobs number today and a strong U.S. dollar. So let's get right at it here. Heading into the metals, where it was mostly down, but not a whole lot of action here.
Well, gold was down for the fourth week in a row. It closed at 1275, down 0.5%. But actually, when it opened this morning, it was down to like 1265 on market open in New York, and then we had that bad jobs report. So U.S. dollar dropped off a bit, and the precious metals had a bit of recovery. Silver finished up 1%, actually up a whopping 16 cents to finish at 1677, narrowing that gap on the ratio a bit. Platinum was exactly flat at 912. This morning, platinum was down to 905, and palladium had surged to something around 935. And then this jobs report came out, and the whole thing reversed. Platinum ended up flat. Palladium ended up the week at 913, down almost 2%. But that all happened in a course of an hour or two this morning. Copper, meanwhile, had a nice recovery as it continues to consolidate. It finished the week at 299, up 2%. I want to talk a little bit about ratios here. Gold to silver, 76, down a point. Platinum to gold came off its all-time low of 0.72. It finished at 0.71. And platinum palladium ratio is back at par. In the copper market, it really popped yesterday. And get this, Rob, it popped on a small earthquake situated near Calaman in northern Chile. Now, I've been to Calaman. It's a bit of a hellhole, but it's kind of the Codelco center of operations in northern Chile. But this 5.4 earthquake sent the speculators in a tizzy. We have a very big contango in copper right now, something that I haven't seen. I don't know if I've ever seen this big a contango, which is very good for the copper price going forward. Meanwhile, let's touch a bit. I want to touch a bit on other base metals. Zinc hit a 10-year high day before yesterday at something like $1.52. Lead hit a 5-year high on Tuesday of $1.18. Both those are in backwardation, which means there's very tight supplies currently. And this is despite China being shut down, all their markets shut down for holidays this entire week.
And as we head into the energy markets, we don't talk much about uranium, but I guess we do, but we don't want to. But oil is the big story here. A very horrendous week for oil.
Well, oil had a really crazy week. It went down below $50. It went back up to 51.50, and then today, or actually last night on Asian Open, it dropped a $1.50, just dropped off the shelf. There is some concern in the Gulf Coast about a new hurricane coming. It's still a tropical storm called Nate, but it's headed toward the Gulf Coast. There's also the specs always like to worry, so there's worries coming out of OPEC that their production cuts are not holding. U.S. exports, this is positive for U.S. exports, at an all-time high, Rob, at 2 million barrels per day. We're not that far from being energy independent in this country. Rigs, meanwhile, in Q3, off 6 after a strong rise in Q1 and Q2. I think that's the reality of shale oil break even at all-in costs and good return to shareholders at $50. Meanwhile, the Saudi kings headed to Russia to meet with the Russians, trying to do an oil deal with them. And probably the big news that upset the market most was comes out that Russia and China and the Venezuelans are trying to get in bed together to trade oil in Chinese yuan. They've started a Chinese oil futures market in Shanghai, and they're trying to to bypass the petrodollar. They've tried this time and time again in the past. Most recently, I think 5 or 6 years ago, didn't work. But they're trying to break the petrodollar deal that was consummated with the Saudis and the U.S. immediately after World War II.
And meanwhile, uranium off a dime here this week.
Yeah, I don't even know why we keep talking about it. I say we should just let it go until it moves. If you don't hear any more about it, it's range bound between $20 and $21 until further notice.
There you go. There you go. Let's move on to the currencies. Where, as mentioned at the top, the U.S. dollar here seems to keep that track upward, and the other two are off.
Yeah, the U.S. dollar surged this week. It was above 94 before the bad payroll report hit this morning. It finished at 93.78 for a loss on the day, but a nice gain over the week at 0.8%. Euro off 0.6% to a buck 17. Meanwhile, the loonie, the real story here is in currencies, is loonie off for 4 weeks in a row. It went back below 80 cents at 0.7977. That's a 4% loss in 4 weeks.
And heading over to the markets here, I'm running out of analogies, but these things just keep moving to the upside. It seems like no matter what data comes in, these things are just flying.
I've got a good one for you. You know that old blues song that says this train keeps a rolling all night long, and that's what's going on with U.S. markets. Another week of record highs, although they fell off a bit today on the non-farm payroll report being weak and the crude oil tumble. But that said, still record highs across the board. 22,774 for the Dow, up over 1.5%. S&P 500 2549, up 1.2%. Nasdaq actually finished an all-time high today at 6590, up 1.4% for the week. Here's the other thing. You know, we might start covering this on a weekly basis. There's just no volatility in these markets. They just keep creeping higher and higher and higher. The VIX, the S&P 500 futures index, measurement of volatility is less than 10 all week. And this is historic lows since this index was first calculated in 1990, 28-year low for volatility in the S&P 500.
Wow. And finishing up with the venture, pretty solid week for the venture as well.
Yeah, it was on the uptick 4 days in a row. It's been quite a while we've seen that. Volumes are climbing, but they're still low. But climbing week over week for about 3 weeks now. So maybe we're getting a little interest in this market, despite a falling gold price.
Okay, Mickey, I know you're a busy guy. I appreciate the info, and we'll look forward to catching up with you next week.
Yeah, lots of baseball, got football and hockey started. My Blues took care of the Penguins in overtime on Wednesday night. So lots of things to do, lots of sports to watch, Rob.
You got it, Mickey. Have a great weekend.
All right, you too.